Now I would like to call the August 18th meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order. If you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Cunningham, would you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could I get a roll call, please?
Melissa Mullins-Mischke.
Here.
Dwayne Hogan.
Here.
Earl Cunningham.
Here.
Glenn Minnick.
Here.
Greg Zabala.
Here.
Wonderful. I will entertain a motion for the approval of the July 21st meeting minutes.
Madam President, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve the meeting minutes as distributed and read.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes passed. So let's move on to petition number 1, which, am I correct, is on Zoom? Okay. Petition number 1 is a petition for variance of use for James and Jessica Arnold and Our Neck of the Woods LLC, represented by Anthony Novak of Newby Lewis, Kaminsky and Jones, to operate a boarding facility in R1A zoning on 9.4 acres instead of the required 10-acre minimum. The property is located at 2729 North Wozniak Road, Michigan City, Cool Spring Township, zoned R1A.
Notice is adequate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. If anyone can't hear me at any time, Madam President, members of the board, my name is Anthony Novak. I'm an attorney with Newby Lewis, Kaminsky and Jones in LaPorte. As the President stated, we're here tonight on behalf of petitioners James and Jessica Arnold. Jessica Arnold is also, and then their entity, an LLC, they created specifically for boarding stable, Our Neck of the Woods LLC. So if I will be making the presentation tonight, and if you guys have any follow-up questions specifically for Jessica, she'll feel free to answer any more specific. So as President indicated, we're seeking 2 variances tonight, which together will permit the petitioners to operate a boarding stable on their 2 parcels of land at 2729 North Wozniak Road in Michigan City. My petition attached an exhibit, which is a beacon overview, which I think Ashley was nice enough to maybe distribute to you guys. That just shows the parcels and then circled in red specifically where the barn and the paddocks are here. But the 2 variances we're seeking tonight, one is to operate a boarding stable in R1A. As it stands in R1A, the petitioners here can keep horses up to 1 horse per acre, but cannot actually board those horses. And then second, to do it on 9.4 acres of land, where the JZO Article 14 requires it to be on 10 acres of land. So collectively, those are the 2 variances that we are seeking tonight. So, although there's a couple petitioners, I'll talk about Jessica specifically. She's the one with the passion here. She's had a love for horses her entire life. She began riding when she was 3 and got her first horse about 25 years ago. Since then, she's now has 5 horses, and each of them that she's obtained, she's either adopted or removed them from less than ideal situations. In 2016, this property on Wozniak Road became available, which was a perfect property for a family with horses. It's got nearly 10 acres. It's mostly wooded, it's secluded, and it was already equipped with a couple barns and 5 paddocks where she could keep her horses. One of the barns, which is the one circled in red, but she refers it to as the stall barn, has 6 stalls in it, and then obviously there's 5 paddocks just right near the right near the barn. So in November of 2016, her and her husband purchased this property, and they moved themselves and their horses in at that time. So over the past few years, the Arnolds and their horses have enjoyed the property, but Jessica obviously saw an opportunity with the stall barn since it goes unused most of the time. So if she was able to have a boarding stable here, she would plan on providing various levels of service for others and their horses. For example, if somebody was going out of town, she would temporarily keep the horse until they returned. Or if somebody was just simply passing through LaPorte County, she would provide the opportunity for somebody to stop, take their horse out of the trailer and give them a place to stay for the night. The Arnold would still own the property under their names individually, but they would operate the boarding stable under their entity, Our Neck of the Woods LLC. The existing JZO, as it stands right now, she can already keep horses on her property. Specifically, she could have up to 9 horses right now if they were all her own and we're not boarding others. But she only has 5. When she does the boarding stable, she said that she doesn't plan on maxing it out at 9, but instead just use it from time to time when she has the ability to do so. And as I indicated before, there's already paddocks here and there's already a structure here. So if you granted the use variance tonight, there wouldn't be additional construction or anything that would need to be done. Instead, she would use the existing barn and the paddocks. So although formally we're asking for a new use to be approved, as a practical matter, it's not going to look very different out there except for the fact that she could now officially board horses. So in conclusion, we're simply just asking for the 2 variances to let her have a boarding stable on the 9.4 acres, and that's certainly available for any questions, but anything maybe more specific about how she operates would be good, suited for Jessica.
Thank you. How many horses max, again, are we looking at from a boarding perspective?
She would still abide by the use, which is 1 horse per acre, and she's got 9.4, so I would assume you have to round down. But if you guys want to round up, we'll take 10, but she's fine with 9.
How many horses do you currently have now?
I have 5.
Do we have any remonstrators this evening for petition number 1? Anybody for or against petition number 1? Going once, twice. Seeing no remonstrators, are there any further questions or comments of the board?
After visiting the site, I would have no legitimate concern going at 10 instead of 9.4 horses. It's pretty isolated, it's well kept. And if she's got 5 and she wants to board 5 temporarily, that would not bother me in the least if I were a neighbor.
No, I don't see no problem with it myself. I was out there looking it over, it looks really nice.
It's nice, it's very well
Nice.
done. If there are no further questions or comments of the board, I will entertain a motion for petition number 1.
Okay, Madam President, I'll go ahead and make the motion for petition number 1 for the variance of use for James D. and Jessica Arnold, doing business our neck of the woods, represented by Anthony there, to operate a boarding facility in R1 zoning at 9.4 acres instead of the required 10 in the Cool Spring Township. And you can go ahead and board the 10 horses as we talked about earlier.
Thank you.
So I just want to
Clarification, it's not exactly board, it's,
Okay.
she has 5 of her own, so she can board a maximum of 10 unless she reduced her own horses, correct, Anthony?
Right. 10 total
Correct.
horses.
She can only have a maximum of 10 horses at any one time.
10 horses in, yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
So I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, your motion passes. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, going forward, petition number 2 this evening is a petition for variance of use for Edward and Deborah Arnold, represented by Andrew Volz of House and House, for construction of a 68 to 70 unit assisted living facility with potentially 6 to 8 detached senior villas, which would be allowed if the property was zoned B1 or O1. Property is located at 4155 North State Road 39 in LaPorte, Center Township, zoned B3 on 4.01 acres.
Notice is adequate.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, council. My name is Andrew Volz, obviously, and I am representing Edward and Deborah Arnold. I'm with House and House here in LaPorte. As indicated by Madam President, this is a petition for use variance with regards to the fact that my client is desiring to construct a 68 to 70 unit assisted living facility that would be 1 story, estimated at approximately 48,000 square feet, and then potential future construction of 6 to 8 detached senior villas or casitas or whatever you would like to call them. Pursuant to the JZO, if this property was in fact zoned B1 or O1, this would be a permitted use and we wouldn't need to be before this board. But because of the unique location of where this is directly next to the toll road, it's considered a commercial highway, meaning B3. I've presented to you letters in support from neighboring property owners, and I do recognize that this project, at the stage that we're at right now, there are many, many other steps that have to happen here. The first step that has to happen is for this board to grant the use variance to allow the construction or the potential construction of this type of facility at this property. There are certainly other hoops that need to be jumped through, and I will be very candid here. I know this is a politically charged issue. There are moving parts here with regards to fire suppression, fire support, potential water towers, grants for said water towers, etc., etc. But I would like to keep the board focused on the issue before you, is that it's simply the use variance at this point. We know that we've got to jump through other hoops and we have to work with other individuals and other entities in the county. But we can't even get to that step if this board would choose not to grant the variance for the property. And I do understand that there are probably some remonstrators present, but again, the focus of this board is simply on the use variance. It doesn't have anything to do with fire suppression or providing fire protection or grants that are out there that apparently the county commissioners are dealing with regards to the potential construction of water towers, etc., etc. Let's keep it focused here, please. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. My client is here, his architectural representative is here. We can answer whatever questions you may have.
Is there any intent to purchase the property around it as well? North of there and along the toll road?
Well, again, this is a unique situation here because my client or his business entities own all of the parcels around there with the exception of the state of Indiana.
Right.
So the plans that were submitted are what he intends or they intend to do with regards to construction of this facility.
Okay. I know you want to keep us focused on this specific use of the land. Are there sufficient facilities out there to support it?
Meaning facilities,
Water, sewer?
there is a unique proposal, and again, I'll go into it, but again, I don't believe jurisdictionally the board can factor this into their determination.
No, that's true. I just am
Yeah,
curious if it's built ready.
there is a 1 million gallon lake or body of water that's out there that is available to be used for fire suppression. And yes, there again are going to have to be hoops that are jumped through, but it's not like we're going into this blind where my client doesn't understand what needs to happen and how it needs to happen. But certainly the prophylactic measures are in place at this point to provide proper fire support and suppression and protection with what he's proposing with regards to the reservoir that's out there.
So I guess I'm misunderstood. My question had more to do with, is there water and sewer available
Already.
here regardless of fire suppression?
That's part of the Conservancy District, correct?
Yes, that
Right.
is correct.
Okay, so there's an existing Conservancy District.
It's
I don't
the
think it's
39
built
North,
out
I believe
yet.
it's-
Yeah,
yeah.
39 North Conservancy District. I don't think it's built out yet that far.
But that's part of the whole
Right.
discussion that's
But
going
there was
on.
originally a plan for it, so when that Conservancy District was designed, it took into consideration these type of improvements.
And moving north.
Right, thank you. That's where I was.
Okay, I'm sorry, I
Going-
apologize
that's
for the
where I was
round the corner
going.
answer.
I got it. Yes, sir. I think it's a great idea. I really applaud the effort for trying to do it out there, but I really have a lot of hesitation with the fire suppression coming with my background, where it's going to be out there first, with even granting the proposal to put something like that out there, not knowing that that could still be dangling out there as a carrot, you know?
Well, Mr. Hogan, in my mind, the potential would exist for the project to quote-unquote get shot down if that was not put into place. But we can't even get to that point without being allowed to present the possibility that this project would go through, and as it's currently zoned, it's not permitted. And that's why we are requesting the use variance. This is very much a chicken before the egg type thing, or a domino type situation, where we've got to put the pieces in place in a proper order and address the issues before the various boards and commissions and what have you in a proper manner, but we've got to do it a step at a time. And we can't even get past this first step without this board granting the variance to allow us to proceed to then present further options and avenues in the future.
I understand. It'd have to be some type of contingency plan where in the event that it wasn't fulfilled to the end, it could never happen. That's the problem.
Well, if I might, there are a lot of different agencies that are going to monitor this. Our only consideration is whether a nursing home should be in that spot. There's no way this is going to get constructed unless they go through a lot of different state entities, approvals, and inspections. So there's nothing that this board can do that's going to affect fire suppression, water, sewer, because those are all already monitored by other agencies. If that.
So I think Dwayne's point is he can make it a motion to approve it contingent on all state approvals.
Well, it would
State agency
it would
approvals.
be-
It's already
it would
contingent
be-
on-
It is, but I think he's concerned about protecting this board, I think.
I understand.
And I certainly understand that, because at the end of the day, even if this board were to grant this use variance, if it gets shot down by some other agency or some other entity, there's nothing that comes back on this board, because that's not this board's decision.
Andrew, how long does it take from this location to get to Franciscan Hospital?
Be a while.
And then keep those wheels going, because I'm going to ask about LaPorte
And
Hospital
why
as well.
Franciscan?
Those are
because-
LaPorte and Franciscan are the
Sure.
two hospitals in the
So
area.
if you would head north on 39 to 20, it's about 7 minutes, and then from 20 over to 421, I'm gonna guess somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 minutes, so 22 minutes possibly. And I would say if it was in fact LaPorte Hospital or then Beacon, the new medical group,
that would be
I
great.
would say it would be very, very similar. Because again, you're a straight shot into town on 30, meaning into LaPorte on 39, and then you're cutting around on Pine Lake. And then even if you came in the back way, not going over the overpass, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 minutes, tops.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking is, my experience with senior living, and my father was in one, was even though it was relatively close to a hospital, there were issues getting him
Certainly.
back and forth, and that can be a burden on those people that are housed there. So I'm certainly concerned about.
And I suppose the other option would be considering the fact that the toll road entrance is right
South
there. You
Bend.
could take 80 over to South Bend, or you could take 80 the other direction going towards Michigan City, get off on 421 south of I-94 and head up to Franciscan there.
But we're looking at 25 minutes, you think? either?
Tops.
Okay. Are there any remonstrators this evening for petition number 2? Any remonstrators for or against? If you'd like to come forward, please.
Good evening, Randy Novak, 7,000 West, 125 North LaPorte. I understand the board's position on the zoning and things. We had a meeting last week with the LaPorte Water Department, the joining fire departments and everybody, and I think this is a fantastic plan. I love the design. I seen what it was, and I think we're needed in LaPorte County.
Oh, yeah.
My issue is the water line going out, supplying this area. And it has nothing to do with Mr. Arnold, because I also sit on the redevelopment commission for the county, and we're not allowing any new, we're not hardly even promoting that area out there, because we know there can be no construction out there in the industrial park, because there's no water lines to supply it. There's a main water line going out there, it's supposed to be 12 inches, they downsized it to 8. So this is per the LaPorte Water Department, it is not enough sufficient water to do that. He has contingency plans, I get that. And I have nothing against that, and if it all goes through, fantastic. I just think there needs to, the LaPorte City has offered to do something with a water tower over there and take over that line. If it's at all possible, I'd like to see a contingent upon doing that. This is for the local fire departments and everybody else, because an assisted living place out there with that many people, that's my only concern. Like I said, I never met Mr. Arnold before last week. I have nothing against him or this I think it's fantastic that we had it. If the water main was big, I'd be cheering it, saying it's a fantastic
So
thing.
how would you phrase the contingency you're requesting? Are we talking about the line size or a water tower? I think the board's gonna wanna know if the motion's made.
The meeting that we had last week with, and nobody, wasn't experts, but it was LaPorte Fire Department, LaPorte City Water, Center Township Fire Department. At the end of the thing is the water tower. I talked to the mayor of LaPorte. He's open to talking about this water tower. The water guy, Tim from the water department for LaPorte City said, yeah, we'll take that over, we'll do it. Where redevelopment commission is in the process of filing grants, as he mentioned, their attorney mentioned. So we're spending money trying to do grants. Everybody's trying to get this thing fixed, but we need to get it fixed before. That's my only thing. I'm not trying to hold him up, not trying to stop it. I know they got a time frame to do it. So that's why if there could be some contingency on there, that would be great. They could still do what they're doing, and at the same time, we're doing what we're doing to try and get the tower.
Is there somewhere we can word that, Doug, to make that happen that way?
If we said it was contingent, are you only concerned with fire suppression?
Yeah.
Okay.
Biggest.
So if we said it was contingent upon appropriate appropriate volume available for fire suppression, would that be sufficient?
You can, I don't know about that, because engineers can kind of spin numbers and
how
say,
determined by whom?
This is what we're gonna get, and like he said, if he sucks out the lake in the front versus that,
All right, so Center makes the call, right?
well, Center.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be.
Right.
So why don't we just make it subject to approval of Center Township Fire Department? That's pretty simple.
Right, I mean, they would, after this,
The state monitors this?
The state monitors.
What state entity monitors this? I'm trying to figure out how to write this so we get this done.
No, he's saying that they gotta send the plans
Department
done.
of Homeland Security.
I'm sorry, sir, if you're gonna speak, could I get Mr. Novak to sit down and have you,
You want me done?
well, you
Get
can
more?
just stay within 6 feet.
Could be a rebuttal time.
I'd like to have your name and address for the record, please.
John English in Elkhorn, Wisconsin.
Your full address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. 132 West Market Street, Elkhorn, Wisconsin.
And your involvement in this, are you
I'm the
part
developer.
of, part of the, okay,
And the plans and specs have to be approved by the Indiana State Department of Public Health Engineering Program. Todd Height, Murray and Buffington. They also go through the same process with the Indiana Department of the Indiana Department of Homeland Security, Fire Protection, and Building Safety Division.
Thank you.
They will not give us a license to operate without.
please. So I guess my question is then, and I'm gonna be ignorant on this issue, does the local fire department not have to do a final inspection or anything for them?
Will.
To take occupancy? So Center Township would have an opportunity to,
After the fact.
Right.
So here's what I'm here to tell you. With 35 years in the fire service, this is my experience with the Department of Homeland Security. I think it's great. They do a great job down there. Their hands are full. They're in Indianapolis. So when these two gentlemen go down to Indianapolis, the local fire department isn't going down to Indianapolis. Nobody else is, unless they make the trip down there to do that. Things get approved all the time, so they can submit their plans. And this is nothing against them. This is actual things that have happened in the past. They submit plans to us, the fire department in Michigan City. They go downstate, they come back, they're building, and we go in and go, where's this? And they go, oh, well, the state, they said we didn't have to do that. This and that. So it changes from that. So things change. So this is just a contingency. So to sit there and say that the state is the safeguard and they've got this big, high No
totally-
disrespectful to anybody on the.
Totally understand.
Understand that.
Very good friends of mine, so.
Yeah, I also
you.
feel I don't want to handcuff Center Township into something that they can't control either about it as well. I understand. I mean,
Attorney Volz, you have further comments?
I guess just to respond briefly again, I want to make sure again we're laser focused on the jurisdictional aspects of what this board can and cannot do. I don't know that, I mean, certainly we can, there can be findings of fact and conclusions as related to that the variance would be granted contingent upon, but the problem there is that then nothing can happen. It's got to happen first. The project has to be moving forward in order for all of these hoops to be jumped through. We can't get Center Township's approval on fire suppression techniques unless they're installed, or at least proposed. And without a use variance allowing the project to move forward to the next hoop that's got to be jumped through, we don't even get there. So I guess the concern that I have is a contingency put upon this board allowing this type of project to go forward in B3, as again it would be allowed in B1 or O1, contingent upon what? Fire suppression plan approval? How do we put that even into place before construction begins?
Well, I have to be honest with you, I don't know anything about fire suppression issues with this property until this evening. I'm just more concerned about supply.
Sure,
Well-
and if I may
So-
address that, I am also, I mean, the county commissioners are involved, there are at
And
least a half a dozen agencies.
What I'm going to say for a moment is that we're still in the remonstrance phase. I do have some letters of remonstrance, and I'd like to see if there's anyone else from the crowd that would like to speak. Are there any other remonstrators for petition number 2? So I do have 2 letters in support of this project. However, I do not have addresses for them, or I do have names, so I would be taking their word on whether or not they're actually attached to this location or involved one way or the other. They are in support of it. Are there any other remonstrators this evening?
Both of these letters are very short. I have no issue reading them into the record. Think they should be?
I don't think it's necessary. Attorney Beachy?
I want to be clear on what the board takes into consideration. I can appreciate the board's concerns, but this board has no expertise with regard to fire suppression. And although I appreciate Mr. Novak's comments, your considerations are the following. Whether the approval will be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and welfare of the community, the use and value of the adjacent area, some peculiar condition of the property, the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship to the property, and approval does not interfere with the comprehensive plan. So I want to be clear from the legal standpoint, fire suppression is not a consideration of the board. If you choose to make it contingent, which we do a lot, that doesn't mean that I can enforce it,
Right.
because you don't have jurisdiction, okay? So a lot of times we'll add contingencies to grants of variances, a lot of times to alleviate concerns of the remonstrators, the neighbors, or individual board members, but I want to be crystal clear. We haven't had any issues, but if we were to have an issue, this is one I could not enforce,
Correct.
because there are already agencies assigned that handle it. So if somebody's going to ensure proper installation of a fire suppression system, it's not going to be this board. Okay?
Very good.
Well, my
Thank you.
concern is, being honest, I want to see it go through. I think it's a great idea to do it. And I know that the injurious for the health and safety of the people around there, I guess that's where I'd fall under if it didn't meet that criteria.
Well, I understand your point.
And I like Randy, I also have 35 years of fire service.
Okay, well,
And, I mean, we've been through a lot of it at school, a lot of academies, a lot of suppressions and things like that. And I understand what we're saying. Trust me now, we gotta move forward. But what happens on the back door when something slips through and says, God, we should've had that taken care of. You didn't address it up front and there was no other plan for it.
Yeah, but I don't think
That's my concern. I know it's gotta go forward. I know the cart in front of the horse. I understand that. But I would almost feel better if Center Township would have been here too to discuss that or meet with these guys and have some type of a plan and get into some type of an agreement that this is what I think we're gonna do, how we're gonna get there.
how about this? You can instruct the building commissioner not to issue a certificate of occupancy until such time as she verified with the Indiana Department of Public Health, the Indiana Department of Homeland Security, as well as Center Township.
Are you sure there's not going to be more agencies involved?
If I may respond to that, I think that's a phenomenal idea. Because I think it covers the board here, number one, and the COO can't be issued unless these agencies sign off. And so you're not even addressing something that, again, quote unquote, you can't address.
But you can instruct the building commissioner to do things. So that way you're ensuring all three entities are happy before anybody goes in.
And I'm sorry, three entities again: Indiana Department of Public Health, Indiana Department of Homeland Security, and Center Township.
Yep. Right.
Would it not be better to say state and local?
You can say that.
Come on up.
And if you would please state your name and address for the record.
Edward Arnold, 4155 North State Road 39, LaPorte, Indiana. First, I'd like to explain to this board, this is one of the most isolated parcels imaginable because it's surrounded by interstates. In fact, the Gentlemen's Club approached me with a letter that tried to come into LaPorte County, recognizing that that was a site they could get away with maybe.
That didn't fly.
So, I own
Sadly.
I own all the property around, and I've recently bought the property across the street, the White House on the Hill. So anything that can see this development, including the Merchant School Building, Mr. Hemi Auto, Pat Kindig, and the owners of the Hampton Inn, who are both supportive, everybody thinks it's a wonderful idea. I have 12 years firefighting experience, by the way.
That's great.
And we're going to build the safest building around, believe me. And we're also building one of the first corona-resistant facilities in the region. We're using needlepoint bipolar ionization technology and UV lighting in the heating and air conditioning system. We're going to approach hospital levels in this assisted living because this is a serious issue that we're facing today. But we have a plan for water. That's going to come down the road to a different agency, but I do have an issue with being hamstrung with Center Township because of my unique relationship. And that is my wife was Center Township trustee for 12 years. There was some infighting in the department. There's a lot of personalities involved. And quite honestly, they do not have the expertise of the other agencies. I'm happy to go under the thumb, have to, of the Homeland Security and the Indianapolis departments and the building commissioner, but don't do this to us on requiring Center Township to approve any plans or anything, because quite honestly, they just don't have the expertise. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you. This is the last comment.
The thing is to do it, you're asking, first of all, you can't eliminate the local fire department from having authority to do that. They're the ones that are putting their lives on the line to go out there and save somebody that's out there. So to say that we're not going to include them, regardless of that, I'm also the chairman of LaPorte County Fire Chiefs Association. But you can't, to say after the fact, and I understand what you're thinking about doing, but after the fact, Center Township goes out there and says, we got an issue. They're a small department, and you're asking them to hold up millions of dollars worth of stuff after it's all done, instead of taking away their chance to talk about it beforehand, makes it that much even harder, and it could possibly cost them a lot. I mean, it's easier
Absolutely.
to get this thing resolved now than it is later. Now, I know they're under a time constraint. I know they're trying to do that. But I think there needs to be something tied, but absolutely don't take out Center Township, the city of LaPorte, or LaPorte City Water Department even. So they're the ones feeding the water. So, and it's the supply line out there. It's not the fire suppression system that he's putting in. It's the supply line going out there.
Thank you, Mr. Novak.
One question that we haven't had answered is approximately how many jobs would you estimate?
Good question.
Go ahead.
two phases here. You'll have construction jobs, but then more
Construction.
importantly, you'll have full-time jobs afterwards.
Correct. The economic impact for the county is construction jobs anywhere between 125 and 175 construction jobs. We just got our initial project bids in. It's going to be more higher than the lower. They came in pretty high.
So that would be a local company too that is
Our
using
general
local
contractor
workforce?
is actually an investor in the project. They're out of St. Louis. All of the subcontractors have been from this area.
Okay.
That's the local workers. The long term, I should also say on this thing, this is a prevailing wage job also. So these are not low end
Right.
cut rate jobs. They are full prevailing wage jobs. There will be at least 50 long term jobs. This is assisted living. This is not assisted living and memory care. It is not skilled nursing. There will be at least 50 new jobs, long-term, once again, well-paying jobs. These are LPNs, DONs, executive directors, down to CNAs. More than likely, my wife will be working there. She's a CNA. With the budget numbers that we just came in with, that's about $4 million of construction labor. And over a 10-year period, the labor within the building it's $2 million a year is going to be the labor in the building. So you guys, $20 million over a 10-year period. It's also the right time. We are pushing to try to get this thing moving forward. There's not a whole lot of construction work going on out there, guys. There's not a whole lot of work in general going on out there. We're coming into town with investors and loans and risks being taken by the ownerships that are willing to do this, and it helps spur not just the local economy but the state economy and the national economy all the way through it. Last but not least, property tax. We budgeted for at least $80,000 a year in property tax coming out of this building. Okay.
Wonderful, thank you. With remonstrance closed, are there any further questions or comments of the board?
Just for a reference point, the hotel that's out there, is it drawing water from the city water line at this time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to say, I think it's a really wonderful idea, and I think the location is a good location. But I'm not inclined to vote yes to this without support from working with our local agencies as well. It seems to be a large concern, and if we can't find a way to work with them and include them, even if it's just a good neighbor inclusion, then I'm inclined to say no to this.
I'm agree with, I'm just thinking, like Doug said, it's true, we're trying to keep focused here, but there's still, I want to make sure that we have got the bases covered. And yet, I understand, it's awesome, but I want to make sure we keep the entities involved that need to be involved in there. And the fire department, even though there might be some disgruntledness or that with the son, that's one thing on the bridge, but still has to be with the city, LaPorte. They still have to be able to work together and get things figured out, so going forward. That's a big responsibility.
I don't see any reason why those departments can't work, or agencies and departments can't work in conjunction with this project, especially since the project will be mandated by state requirements. Mm-hmm. So if everybody's on board and everybody's working in conjunction with each other as far as approvals and how this process is going to go, then there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to build this project there.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no further questions or comments,
I think as long as there's input provided by all and involved, I mean, that'd be one thing.
I can entertain a motion.
On a side note, it would seem to me that the investors are putting up a lot of money here, and this meeting itself has been videotaped. Mm-hmm. If they build something out there and a year from now, a year afterwards, there's a fire and the suppression is a problem, you're looking at multi-million-dollar lawsuits. I can't imagine these investors taking that risk unless they were willing to meet that standard.
I wouldn't roll those.
I mean, this meeting itself has been videotaped. These guys know anybody that has a problem is gonna use that against them. And so it would seem to me that they should be trying to work with everybody possible to meet the needs. Otherwise, they're risking their own money.
Mr. Cunningham, you sound like an attorney right now.
I wish I was getting paid like an attorney, Mr. Volz, the attorney.
If I might add one more thing, remember, the insurance company above all
Absolutely.
will make sure that the fire suppression system is adequate. So this isn't the only place this is gonna, anybody's gonna look at it, because I guarantee you, the most strict, well, my opinion is, the most strict authority on any fire suppression system in a facility such as this will be the insurance company.
Underwriter.
So having those wonderful comments, if anyone would like to make a motion, I would certainly entertain it.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the petition for the variance of use for Edward W. and Deborah S. Arnold, represented by Andrew Volz of House and House, for the construction of a 68 to 70 unit assisted living facility with potentially 6 to 8 detached senior villas, which would be allowed if the property was zoned B1 or O1. The property is located at 4155 North State Road 39, LaPorte, Indiana, in Center Township. It's on 4.01 acres. And the contingency would be that it has to be approved by all 3 state agencies, Department of Health, Homeland Security, and Building Protection.
Center Township.
Could we not make that subject to the approval of all local and state agencies and departments whose jurisdictions will determine how said structure and complex is to be built?
Who sounds like an
Pretty
attorney
well, pretty well
now?
phrased.
I'll withdraw my contingency and accept his.
That's pretty good.
Wow.
Yes, sir. Put that in the finding of facts.
This is amazing. I'm glad this is recorded. Okay. Earl, do you agree with those?
I withdrew my recommendation and accepted his.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second.
Second.
Thank you. Greg did.
A
A motion and a second.
Only comments on that, as long as we strictly adhere to what we just said with that, I'll be satisfied.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Good luck, your motion passed.
Nice worded.
Okay, let's go on to petition number 3 this evening. A petition for special exception for Daniel Versaw to operate a sand mining business. The property is located at 666 and 998 East 1000 North, LaPorte, Indiana, Galene Township. Zoned ag on combined 40 acres.
They're both here.
Petition number 3, are you here? Petition number 3. Okay, so I'm going to move petition number 3 to the end of the agenda, and if not, we'll move them to next month. Petition number 4 is a petition for variance of developmental standards for James and Pamela Glasgow for construction of home on a parcel that is basically landlocked. We'll use portion of existing driveway and new driveway for the property located southeast of 7719 South Sand Road, Union Mills in Noble Township, zoned R1B on 4.5 acres. If you'd like to come forward and present your paperwork to our attorney, please.
Just pick one of them attorneys up there.
This gentleman right here.
He can afford a tie.
Catch that one, Annie?
Where was it published?
Oh,
Westville?
Yes, Westville, I got the email.
Andy might have it then.
Westville indicators, you said.
Yes.
Yes, we got it.
Thank you.
This is the best picture of it. Did you go up there?
Yeah. I should go back and talk to Glenn.
You guys have a map?
A map? Like that?
You don't have any frontage?
Any what? Frontage? None.
Do you have any road frontage?
The frontage, yeah, for my home, yes, it's 9 acres that I bought over 30 years ago, and then I bought that 4.5 acres next to me 10 years later.
I know, but
And then-
does this 4.5 acres have any road frontage?
No, it does not, but that's what we would like permission to put an easement there and,
All right, so this is going to be subject to interpretation of the board. The problem I have with this is the newspaper publication says, petition for variance special exception to build a home on a parcel that is basically landlocked, will use portions on existing driveway and new driveway, and then it describes the parcel. It doesn't, there's not a request for variance on road frontage. It doesn't mention lack of road frontage. In my opinion, it doesn't put the neighbors on notice as to what they're requesting. You understand what I'm saying?
so they were not put under notice because of what, because of,
Can you speak into the mic, please?
Your request essentially is for a variance for road frontage, because you don't have any, okay? And the county rules say you have to have 200 feet. You're in the county, right?
yes.
Okay. You didn't tell anybody that in your notice. Your notice just says to use the driveway. So you got to put enough information out there to put the neighbors and the public on notice as to what you're asking for.
Okay,
So in my opinion, notice is
I
inadequate.
disagree, just because, I mean, landlocked to me out in the country means that you have no access through any
understand,
frontage
but-
whatsoever.
But they don't say they're asking for a variance for road frontage at all. They don't mention road frontage, and
Right,
that's
no.
in fact what they're asking for.
That's the basis of the request.
In my opinion, notice is inadequate. The board can certainly overrule my decision.
I'd say maybe publicize it again.
And if you're not clear on what, lawyers don't charge a whole lot to do these. If you're not clear on what has to be done, I'd hire somebody to do it for you.
Okay,
Greg, what do you think?
yeah, I thought that was the reason for the visit to our place, and to see that my son was going to be sharing that my son was going to share the driveway with me. And,
I understand that, but you got to let the public and the neighbors know what it is you're asking for, so they have an opportunity to object to it. And if you're not clear about what you're asking for, then they have no way of knowing. You're asking for a variance on road frontage. That's what you're asking for. Okay?
Without telling them.
So we,
In all fairness to him, Doug, I think one of the staff would help write this up. They put landlocked.
Well, that's why these petitioners have the ability to hire attorneys, and if they want to do it on their own, this is the risk that they take.
I would like to see it re-advertised myself.
Well, and keep in mind the notices and the petitions that went to the neighbors all say the same thing. So I really think the notice, the petition needs to be amended, and the notices go into the neighbors so they know exactly what you're asking for.
I mean, how could you defend it if they come to you and said, hey, that's not what we were notified by?
Couldn't.
Even though we understand the purpose and the intent, it didn't say that. I'm gonna agree with Melissa.
We can set this aside for a month if that gives him sufficient time to advertise again.
It would.
We don't have to wait 6 months or anything like that. We can just do them.
I agree.
Mr. Glasgow, do you understand what they're saying is your actual petition is not to use the driveway, it's to build a home with no frontage? That's got to be advertised a little differently than what you have right
So
now.
the petition only requests that the driveway use, not that a home was being built or.
Right.
Okay.
Okay,
Actually, I've seen it before. It's conceivable to where you have enough road frontage, but you want to use somebody else's driveway because of the lay of the land or elevation or something of that nature. Okay? But yet that's not the variance you're asking for. So that's why I'm saying you've got to, I understand mechanically what you want to do, but you've got to, what you're asking for, you didn't ask legally what you want to do. Okay? And it's my job to make sure we got a clear record.
I make a motion, we table this till next month.
I'll
Or
second
the
that.
month after, as early as Mr. Glasgow and his son can get back in.
I'll agree with that second. Based on the discussion we just had with about it, makes it cleaner for everybody for the finding of facts as well.
I agree. I have a motion and a second to re-advertise and modify the petition for number 4 for Mr. Glasgow. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, so the motion passed that we're gonna have you re-amend your petition 5-1. And,
4-1.
yeah, I'm sorry, done. Come back within the next month, or if you need longer than 1 month, then, 2 months, whenever you'll be up first on the agenda for that following meeting.
Okay.
And if you have any questions, I'm sure Anne Marie can help you.
Yes. Or you guys seek legal attorney.
We've asked them to amend their petition, and we would put them on
Next
whichever
month.
meeting. If it's next month, we'll put them on first
Okay.
and re-advertise and go through the process again.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, petition number 5 this evening is a petition for variance of developmental standards for Nikki Howard for 3 shipping containers side by side set next to a detached pole barn. Containers will look like one structure. The property is located at 725 North, 250 East, LaPorte, Kankakee Township, zoned R1B on 3 acres.
Annie? Sir, complete. How about this one?
Me?
Sir.
No. Unless it came in last day. Oh, when originally? Yes.
Thank you.
Notice is adequate.
Thank you. If you would please state your name and address into the microphone, please.
Hi, Nikki Howard, 725 North 250 East, LaPorte, Indiana 46350.
And you, sir?
Jason Millard, 725 North 250 East, LaPorte.
Okay, can you explain to me the need to have the extra storage containers?
So we've combined, we just got engaged. We combined 2 households. We were going to build a pole barn. Unfortunately, I lost my job due to COVID, and this was less expensive for storage. And we needed storage, an inexpensive storage option.
Okay.
So this is a temporary thing?
Yes.
Are they already there?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
We're in the country.
Yep. The petition, or the building commissioner wrote, from the start, they're going to be enclosed.
They are.
Thought was to...
Into the microphone, please.
We put them behind the pole barn that's already sitting there. And what we planned on doing was putting well, we wanted to paint them so they look just like the pole barn, and then we wanted to put some landscaping or something around them so you hardly even be able to tell they're there. It's just, it's just right now, we can only go so fast with
Lack of funds.
lack of funds.
Oh, the problem with these storage containers that nobody seems to understand though is there's a code for installing them, and it's not that inexpensive. I mean, these would have to still be put in place by the code of the county, which means pouring piers and attaching them to those piers or building a foundation on these containers. Isn't that correct, Andy?
The inspectors will check that. They've done it before.
But do you understand that?
Yeah.
You can't just put a storage container on the ground.
He'd like you to put your
That
mic
doesn't make code.
They are not on, well, they're not in poured concrete, but there's concrete blocks on all the corners. They're all tied together with welded brackets that I made at my job. And they're not actually tied to the ground yet, but that could be done, that's no problem.
Okay.
And certainly that would be, obviously it would have been handled beforehand during inspection, but that would still be an issue they would look at during inspection, correct?
So your intent is not to leave the storage containers where they're at now, but behind the existing barn,
They're
correct?
already behind there now. Everything is back behind the barn. You can see one side here and you can see the other side.
I got you.
She's pulled up to the driveway.
And we're looking at long-term storage, honestly, they're not gonna get picked up and moved either, right? You're gonna keep them there if you're gonna take the time to paint them or blend them into the surroundings and landscape,
We're allowed
so.
to do that, yeah.
Are they attached physically to that garage?
No.
Roofing material, nothing. How much space would you say is between them?
3 feet.
Between the building and your container? Okay.
So these are more of a permanent temporary.
And you're not planning on leasing out storage space? It's all strictly for
renting them.
yourselves?
We need it. We
Okay.
have 3 teenage sons, we need it.
But not a rental?
No. No.
Are there any remonstrators this evening for petition number 5? Anybody for or against petition number 5? Any remonstrators? Hearing none, if there are no further questions or comments of the board, I would entertain a motion.
What do you think, Glenn?
Well, I mean, they're here because there was a complaint. That's the first thing we have to know. Even if somebody didn't want to come to the meeting publicly and air the complaint, if there was a complaint, we know that.
Actually, it was one of the inspectors that saw it. That's what it was.
Okay.
I kind of drew that conclusion as well, but didn't know where.
It isn't it's in an area of, higher end homes. But they are not exposed to very much where they're placed, that's for sure.
I know. Just that.
My only comments are, certainly this is not a trend we want to continue. However, in the best of worst situations, I do think the location of them is as good as it's probably going to get and not as visible from the road. And if you do continue to make it look like the exterior of your barn, I think that's helpful.
Which is a nice looking barn, by the way.
Yeah.
Just not big enough.
I know.
It will look.
I noticed that as soon as I drove up the driveway.
Thank you.
So are there any further questions or comments of the board? And if not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead, Melissa, make a motion for Nikki Howard for the 3 shipping containers that are side by side next to the detached pole barn. To make the containers that will look like one structure. This property is located 725 North, 250 East, LaPorte, and Kankakee. Be approved with the stipulation we just talked about. They're going to fix them up, clean them up, and paint them, and make the facade look like the rest of the pole barn.
And that they are for personal storage only.
Yeah, not to be rented.
Very good. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Can I make a comment?
Please.
Can we make sure that these are properly installed per code?
Well, and you'll have someone go out and inspect them again. Okay, so I do have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, your motion passed. Please make sure you work with the building department to get your inspection done. Thank you. Petition number 6 this evening is a petition for variance of use for Legacy Sign Group LLC and GH&J LLC seller to operate a sign manufacturing business in the current building located at 7933 West Highway 6, Westville, New Durham Township, zoned ag on 4.05 acres.
Good evening. My name is Sean.
I'm sorry, does he have your legal work?
He does.
Yep,
Sorry,
we'll wait
just
for him
gotta go through it.
Is that what we're saying?
No, it's adequate.
Thank you. Now if you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Certainly. My name is Sean Ensign, and 316 North, 325 East, Suite 1, Valparaiso, Indiana. I represent the buyer here, Legacy Sign Group partner. I also have my other business partner here as well. Again, we represent the buyer for the property, and we're seeking a petition for a variance of use for the building to allow us to operate a sign manufacturing business in the existing building. The building's already set up well for us. Our business operation should create no more noise, traffic flow, equipment, or deliveries than what currently exists on the building and property. We hope to be a long-standing business here in LaPorte County, and we're happy to address any questions you may have.
How many employees would you say are going to be at this location?
Currently, we have 7 employees, including myself and my business partner. In a future kind of growth opportunity for us, could put us at 25 employees or more.
And just out of curiosity, what kind of signs do you make?
Business outdoor identification signs, letters, monument signs, pylon signs, wall signs.
You name it, you do it?
I'm sorry, yeah.
You name it, you do it?
Pretty
Okay.
much, no billboards or digital printing. It's a little bit different avenue, but
Okay.
custom electric signs typically.
Speaking of signs, are you gonna put a sign up front for the building, for business?
Great question. We do intend to. Obviously, we'll follow any sort of codes that and permitting that
What-
may be required for that.
What size sign are you looking to put up? Would you like to?
Ideally, already have a sign at our current operation. We'd like to probably put that on the building. I think it's, 2 by 10? It's probably 20 square feet for the building.
On the building itself or out at the road?
On the building itself, we'd like to put that already existing sign that we have on our building now. For the road, I'll be quite honest with you, I have not looked at what zoning allows, so we have not put anything together. 100 square feet.
You gonna put a light on it?
That, I don't know that power exists out there. We are currently looking at bringing in 3-phase into the building with our EMC. We're quite shocked at the number, to be honest with you. So we're currently looking at that. As far as what exists as far as power out there, I'm not quite certain. It is something that we have kind of talked about, exploring solar opportunities, bringing solar opportunities into signage. Perhaps something like that is a good time to try it.
So if we were to grant a 100 square foot sign, would you like it lit ideally?
Yes, ideally. Or at least the caveat to allow it.
And what kind of hours of operation are we looking at, days of the week? And
Typically, we're Monday through Friday operation, 7 a.m. through 5 p.m. Saturdays, we do get out and do sign installation. So there would be, and honestly, sign manufacturing could happen on a Saturday. Typically, Sunday is an off day, but 6 days a week, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Since we're putting these signs up, we need to have an address sign out there, out front?
I'm sorry.
Your address needs to be out front too on a sign?
It would be on like a bottom pole cover or something. Yep.
We looked around a couple times today. That was me driving all around to look for the signs.
Yeah.
What?
Really, that's the only one on the whole list I knew.
Well, I knew where it was. But I checked that out. And then those other old semis and stuff that are out there, those are gonna go away?
Those are owned by the current tenant, and yeah, they would be taking those. We've got no plans.
The trailers
to keep
with
those.
no tires and stuff on them, et cetera?
Yep. Yeah, we do have plans to kind of spruce up the property.
Yeah.
You know, I understand there's some brush, there's some trailers sitting around.
Yes.
We do intend to kind of clean up all that, make it a little more usable as well.
Yeah.
Just so we have an idea, you're talking about bringing in three-phase power. What exactly, walk me through the process of most sign building. I mean, fiberglass, I mean, are we gonna have ventilation?
shear?
We're gonna be exhausting.
So with sign manufacturing, a lot of it's just welding. The main reason for the three-phase power is we operate a CNC router, and that requires three-phase power to operate that efficiently. Actually, I don't even think it runs without it. So really, that's the main basis of the three-phase. Now, we do also want to look at bringing in a paint booth, and that also requires three-phase power as well to operate that. If that answers your question, sorry.
It does.
Do we have any remonstrators this evening for petition number 6? If you would, please have a seat, and we'll hear from the remonstrators. If you would have a seat, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ed.
And please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, my name is Ed Kriesel. My address is 7548 West US 6, Westville, Indiana. I come here to remonstrate against this proposal because of the existing building that is there now is been built. It's a 80 by 160 building, which is now taking up land space, and they have put in stone and gravel and ground asphalt, and this property is now being drained into a field from which I farm around this property. In that happening, I have had flooding or crop damage from the water that drains from this property into my field. All the property there, every 4 acres of it, is drained directly into the field that exists beside it. 2 years ago, I first noticed the grounded spots that occurred. If I can give you some maps.
Would that be to the north?
They would be to the north, it would be to the west, and it would be to, well, they don't ground to the east. It's all the way around it.
Okay.
Have you had an opportunity to speak with the county or the MS4 coordinator in regards to the drainage?
Well, this was zoned agricultural, and the Hartongues, which are the people that own the property currently, or representative of them, they're agricultural. I'm all for agriculture. I'm a farmer. I farm the property around it, and I at one time grew vegetables for them.
Okay.
So I had no problem with that. But after this building was built, and after they started putting asphalt and stone, they put hard surfaces everywhere. And now, when it rains, it's just a flood. It happens in the field, you can't control it. The grade is such that it completely drains into that field. And so, my problem is, if somebody's going to manufacture there or something, or they're going to change a variance, I would like to see some kind of water management, because it costs me money, costs them nothing.
So from the photos I've seen, it does not look paved per se, like a road would be paved. It looks like stone and packed.
Ground asphalt.
Right, that it's been packed down.
Yes.
So I think that my opinion is maybe we work with MS4 before, and maybe it is a contingency of the decision of the board, but to work with our drainage entity here at the county so that we can help alleviate that water runoff. So that really would be the issue that would not be in front of our board, but would go to the MS4 coordinator.
Right, and that's what I'm asking for, some kind of, I didn't expect this to happen when they first built the building. I didn't know this was going to happen. But now that it's happened, I got to have some kind of relief or.
Okay.
And I have maps if you care, if you know.
Sure.
You've seen it.
Yep.
And you're welcome to take one and pass it around. You can see where the damage, where the I need one of those, please.
And if you would, make sure you're speaking into the microphone for us,
Like
please.
Get one each person.
Yeah.
You might even just find it, but anyway.
One's got your notes on it?
I got it.
Let's say the answers.
Yeah, the answers. I'm sorry. There we go.
Oh, great, great. They're fine.
I'll share.
On the first page you see is a map of the trailer park before it was
Demolished.
before it was built on. And then after, the next picture, of course, is the picture of the building and everything that's there. A lot of the tree lines have been removed, and the grasses that were planted for lawns, whatever, for house trailers, has now been either replaced with stone or weeds. And then the arrows that you see are dark areas. Those exist now, but did not exist prior when there was a trailer park. Now these dark areas are intense parts. Those areas around those dark areas also are affect the crop in a way that they cause the roots to stunt and not grow. And so that you lose approximately anywhere from 3 or 4 acres just from flooding alone. And in the back of the building, there is erosion that's occurring currently.
Well, I definitely see what you're talking about. I feel like from the first picture, there's a dark round spot that I also see in your last photo. I can't be sure what they are since we're at different scales. And
Those are basically to highlight where the crop damage is occurring.
And so I think that, it looks to me like crop damage, was potentially happening when it was still a mobile home park. But I will make sure that we take your information into consideration when we make our vote. Again, I'm going to encourage you to speak with the MS4 department here at the county. And they do help with water runoff and things of that nature.
Can I ask, I'm stupid, what's MS4?
It's the guy that deals with
This
water.
is Surface Water Management Agency for the
Oh, is
county.
that, okay.
Yeah.
And where are they, in the complex?
I believe he is out at Soil and Water Conservation Building.
Okay.
A Purdue Extension Building.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other remonstrance for petition number 6? If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Raymond Kressel. My address is 2988 South US Highway 421, Westville, Indiana. I own all the property around the building except for lot 1 and 23. And I'm concerned about it bringing down the value of my property if they bring in a manufacturing business in there. And like my brother was telling you, I'm concerned about the water drainage also. And on the front part of the or up there by the road, the people, the tenants there now, they've been using my property for a driveway, and the state of Indiana got all over me for them using without my permission. They just, just all kinds of problems with it. And I don't know if they're gonna build more buildings there. Because 25 employees can do a lot of business there for the size of the place is now. I don't know what their intentions are for sure.
Okay, we can definitely find that out.
Okay.
Do you have any additional concerns?
No.
Okay. Mr. Ensign, if you'd like to come back to the podium, or please state your name and address for the record as well.
Yes, my name is Sean O'Brien. I am Sean Ensign's partner. My address is 135 Wind Whistle Court, Valparaiso, Indiana. And to the Crestals' concern, especially the front area where I see where they put that asphalt down, we were gonna clean all that up. And I was gonna talk to Mr. Crestel about that if we did buy the property. It looks bad. And I was gonna scrape all that off and then possibly even put a berm or something up in the front to kind of, prevent people from driving other than the driveway, and also, making so people, just can't go back there, turn around, or whatever they're gonna do in that
Right.
area. So that was, one thing I was gonna do to alleviate that one concern would be to clean up that front considerably.
Okay.
And, for the concern about the water drainage, I had a hard time, that's up to surface water people deciding what the runoff is different than the trailer park. Essentially that same road is in there. They have a 14,000 square foot building. I don't know if it's putting off that much more water than 10 or 12 mobile homes.
Well, I think it's the amount of impervious surface.
So I guess that would be something for them to consider. I'm not an expert in that. I didn't build the building. The building's gonna stay, it's just if we buy it or not.
Is it something that you would work with the county on and address drainage issues to the extent possible?
Well, I would
and recommended.
We would need to address that rather quickly, because if I got to put in a retention pond or something like that, and it's going to cost me an extra $50,000, $100,000, no, then I just won't buy the building.
I want to remind the board, this is a use variance they're requesting, not developmental standards, and if this were ag, it would be allowed, and we wouldn't be sitting here. So I can appreciate the neighbor's concern about drainage. That comes in if we're talking about construction or developmental standards. We're just talking about how the building is used and if they can use that building in a different way. Okay?
Thank you. You haven't kicked me in a while. 6 feet thing, it's killing them. So are there going to be additional buildings put on that property?
This is my first building. Who knows? I can't answer 10 years from now. There could, just depends. That would be something we have to come back at that point in time, I would think.
Yes.
And, it has to go through all the developmental standards and everything else to be able to do that. So that would be something that, not even in my mind at the moment.
Okay. All right, thank you. Are there any additional remonstrators? Seeing none come forward, I will entertain a motion from the board if there are no further questions or comments.
My comment is, I don't understand how this building got built. I know that the lines aren't always correct, but this building is like on the property line, or near the property line. There should have been how's that happen, Annie? This is a new constructed barn. How can it be that close to the property line to where it's causing all this water problem? It should have been 25 feet from the property line.
When was this built?
This was only built within the last 3 years.
16?
Good question.
3 or 16 years ago?
Look at this, Doug.
3 years ago, 2016.
Show Doug
Oh,
this
okay.
picture.
I think it wrapped in 2017.
Good question.
I don't have the permit in front of me, so I can't answer you.
It's an ag. I don't understand how it was built like that. Yeah, I can see the concern.
Well, and it does look like there's some space to the rear of it from one of the photographs.
Not 25.
You guys know the distance from the building to the property line?
I cannot answer that, no.
Mr. Kriesel, do you have any insight into the building of this building?
And if you're going to respond, please come to the podium so we can get you on record.
Sorry. I believe it's 15 feet to the property line. I can't be certain, but I'm saying it's 15 feet.
No, it's right on it.
No, that makes me think there might not.
Andy, the code is 25.
It is not 25.
For an agricultural building.
In ag, it's 30.
30 in that? I remember it being bigger.
Not to scale. Not to scale.
I don't recall from,
Before the board tonight.
Right, I think this is an issue that you might want to explore with the building department, Glenn. And certainly would be fascinating to know. But I don't think it is part of our decision-making process for this petition.
the point is, at this point in time, that building's gonna be there whether they buy the property or not, and the runoff is gonna be the same. Now, the first thing I would question is there even gutters on that backside of the building?
Yes.
It appears there are.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do have, I guess, a photograph taken from the realtor, an aerial of the back. It must be the corner that show downspouts in the, at least the corner.
Directly to the field.
That was my question. If the downspouts are running all that water off the roof right out into the field 15 feet away, that's part of the problem.
Well, again, that's not something that is the decision of this board for this particular petition. Anne Marie, do you think you could give us the history of this in our next meeting? Because again, this is about the use of the building, and I have not seen any further remonstrators, so if there are no further questions or comments, I think we should be entertaining a motion.
Here. What do you think, Glenn?
I really want to know what Doug thinks. I mean,
I don't think they look, well, I agree, Glenn, that it may be non-conforming with the setbacks, the building exists, and they're not asking for developmental standards. So we're only talking about use tonight. Do we need to go back and adjust it later, maybe, if something fell through the cracks with the building department or they weren't aware? Perhaps. But tonight the issue is, can they use the building for what they're gonna use the building for? You said there's a current tenant in there now?
There is, I'm not sure exactly what they do. I believe they just fix ag equipment, like a mechanic shop.
Okay. So the use wouldn't be different. It's still a business. If Annie's department goes out and inspects and it's something that fell through the cracks and they're too close to the boundary, the owners may, you may have to come back and get a variance. I don't know, I would suggest you check it out and understand what it is before you close.
Understood.
Because whatever problem that may or may not be there, you're gonna get stuck with.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay,
Understood.
yeah.
In light of Mr. Beege's recent comment, the prospective buyers are well aware that there may be an issue here that they're gonna have to follow up with. I would make a motion that we approve the petition for variance of use for a Legacy Sign Group to operate a sign manufacturing business in the current building. Property is located at 7933 West Highway 6, Westville, Indiana, New Durham Township, zoned ag on 4.05 acres.
I would second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion's passed. Good luck.
Tentatively around the end of September. So pretty quick. Everything was going through very quick. Do we know, if I'm allowed to ask, I apologize, do we know how quick we could get an inspector on site?
I'm gonna do some research tomorrow. Hopefully by the end of the day, I'll have some answers for you.
That'd be great. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Petition number 7 this evening is a petition.
Does she have both of your cards to get in touch with you?
No,
We'll call her first.
okay.
Thank you.
Again, petition number 7 is a petition for variance of developmental standards for Kyle and Emily Kirsch for construction of a primary residency with only 48 feet of road frontage and to be the second residence on 8.41 acres. Previous variance for road frontage was granted in April of 2017. The property is located at 3177 Smithfield Lane, LaPorte, Scipio Township, zoned R1B, again on 8.41 acres.
Thank you.
I wouldn't have the answers there tonight.
Right. I just want you to know that.
Okay. Does this go in the last one?
This was,
He entered it into evidence.
this one was pretty unique.
No, this is adequate.
Thank you. Would you please?
Here.
Thank you. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
I think the intent.
My name is Kyle Hirsch. My address is 2737 Smithfield Court, LaPorte, Indiana.
So I'm just trying to take a look at your drawing here, Kyle.
Sure.
So there is a structure, a pole barn,
Correct.
not a house currently.
It's a pole barn, a 5,500 square foot pole barn, and inside that 5,500 square feet is a 1,000 square foot living space for my parents.
Okay.
How's that working out?
Wonderful. Couldn't have gone better.
Did you get a variance for that?
I did, because of the road frontage, yes.
Okay.
And I believe at the time, you are excluded from that subdivision. Oh,
Mike,
Your mic's not on, or it's not in your
Correct.
face. Glenn?
Glenn, use your mic.
sorry. I was saying that you were excluded from that subdivision, which is the rest of the property, basically.
Correct.
Has something changed when I remember when we gave the variance for the barn, there was no real talk about building a home on that lot?
No, at the time, there was not. Things have changed recently. Basically financial reasons, that having this property and my property that is my homestead, the property taxes, the insurance, it makes a lot more sense to make
that your residence.
This my residence rather than take care of two as well.
Mm-hmm.
As I can focus primarily all of my efforts and finances to making this piece of property look nice rather than working on both.
Mm-hmm. So, your parents have an address?
Yes.
And would your address be the same?
It would be, I believe. I don't think I could put two different addresses on the same piece of property.
Indeed you can.
Can I? So I would make it.
It'd be helpful to the fire department.
Yeah. So the new residence would be 3177 and a half. Is that what?
No, the building department will help.
Okay, well, I'm saying it'd be something
Yeah.
like that. I'm sorry. I'm not naming it myself. I'm just asking if that's, sorry.
Are you gonna propose a separate well and septic for the new residence?
Yes, it will be. That was originally platted to have 12 other lots there, so 12 other septics and 12 wells, and now we'll only have 2. This will be the end of it.
And I'm sorry, Kyle, did you say you have an additional homestead? Is that this property?
My house, I actually live in the corner just to the west of the barn. I live there now. They're two separate properties, so that the home I live in is in the subdivision, a little short of 1 acre, and then this is a separate 8.4 acres.
See it?
Do we have any remonstrators this evening for this petition? Anybody here for or against it? Any remonstrators? Do we have any further questions or comments from the board?
Are we to understand that there will be no further development of the remaining parcel of property?
With the last variance, it was said that I could not divide the property.
I think you volunteered that. Correct.
No, I didn't. That was, I don't remember. It was a member of the board said that that was part of the...
It was probably me.
I'm not sure, so that. I've got a copy of the previous variance, and it says, Glenn Minnick made a motion that the petition for a variance of development standards for Kyle and Jay and Emily Kirsch to construct a pole building with 5,504 square feet with living quarters inside of approximately 1,038 square feet. Amended 100 feet of road frontage to be granted with the addition of the property would not be further subdivided and would be property marked at the road on Smithfield Lane. So it's already in the previous one and it would not be subdivided.
And I would certainly like to encourage the board, if we decide to approve this petition, that part of our petition is that no further construction occur on the property. My opinion is this is kind of a way to skirt around the no further subdividing.
Right. But you're not saying he couldn't come back and ask for a pole barn or something else? Yeah.
He could come back
He
and
could
ask.
come back and ask for it.
Right, but I'm saying
You're trying
as
to
far as
avoid another residence.
You might want that.
Yes.
Right.
So you guys aren't talking about an accessory building?
No,
No.
residents.
Okay.
Residents.
I think if you were looking at the same board members, you're not going to get another residence there. That's what she's saying.
Yeah, and I've built all these myself, and this will be the last thing I build. Yeah.
Where's our builder?
So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the petition for variance of developmental standards for Kyle J. and Emily A. Kirsch for the construction of a primary residence with only 48 feet of road frontage and to be the second residence on that 8.41 acres be granted. The property is located at 3177 Smithfield Lane, LaPorte, Indiana, Scipio Township, zoned R1B. I would also attach to that this residence will have its own separate address and it will be the final residence on that lot.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Congratulations, your motion passed.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our final petition this evening, no it's not. Petition number 8 this evening is a petition for variance of developmental standards for Rom Family Trust, Michael O'Hearn, for construction of a new home with the setbacks of 16 feet in the fronts and 10 feet in the rear, instead of the minimum of 25 feet. The property is located at 106 Island Drive, LaPorte, Indiana, Center Township, zoned R1B.
Thank you.
I drove all around this today. There's nowhere to go around. I know.
It says go on the 31st. That's when it was published, but they've all been notified on the.
I don't know what to say.
Less than 10 days.
Well, in all due respect, I had no control over that. I sent it to him on the 30th.
I understand.
And then what it says for the notification, it says my adjoining property owners must be notified. They were all notified on the.
I understand. The statute says you have to have both.
It's up to the board.
That's
All right, so on
the
notice,
notice I was given though.
what's that?
That's not the information I was provided though.
What's not the information you're provided?
It says specifically that the adjoining owners have to be notified 10 days in advance.
And the publication statute says that it has to be 10 days. So we have signatures of the adjoining owners. We have a publication, but it was published on August 13. There's a requirement that it be published 10
10
days.
days.
Board can choose to waive that.
What do you guys think? Earl?
Today's the 18th.
Glenn?
Glenn.
What do you guys think? Do you want to hear it?
They've all signed off. They've all signed off.
They all signed off, so
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
All right,
Thank
if you
you.
would state your name and address for the record.
Michael O'Hearn, 106 Island Drive, LaPorte, Indiana.
Michael, what has happened to this property from the last time I was out on the island that makes it unique that you have to build this close to the setbacks?
Well, actually, we are that close to the setbacks. The problem is we have a pond behind us, and then we have the road in front of us, which splits my property. So if I could close the road down, which I'd love to, I wouldn't have to do any setbacks. Unfortunately, I don't have that option. So in reality, the garage door will still be 25 feet from the edge of the road, which is, right now, I think we're 28 feet. So we're right there, and then we're moving it back a little bit further, which obviously we have a pond behind us with no property owner directly behind us.
How close to that retaining wall in the back are you?
We'll be 13 feet from the retaining wall.
Because when I walked it today, it was really close.
Right. And we had the retaining wall is 16-foot steel, 8-gauge steel, I believe it is. So they actually did it for the purpose of
For future development.
the development, exactly. And then they're going to do for the footing, they're going to do a wider footing and take it, and then we're not putting concrete or anything in the back. So
The other house stays there too?
no, the other house is coming down. It's if you look at the diagram, the house in the red is what's going to be built, and it's obviously taking the property and we're just moving it. What we did is we bought the house next to us. We tore that down, and now we're going to make one that's more in the middle of the two. We joined the lots, so we're going to put it centered in our lot now. So we actually are increasing our side lot variance, where before we were 4 feet from the edge, now we're going to be 13 feet on our side lots.
None of which are 25.
Well, technically side lots I think are only 10,
Yeah, I think the
but we were
rear
4
is,
before.
the rear, yes.
Front and rear are 25. If we were within the setbacks, we could only have a 25-foot wide house, which is barely enough for a garage. As most of us know, when we pull on, we don't like to hit the wall. So,
Do we have any remonstrators this evening for petition number 8? Any remonstrators for petition number 8?
Well, they all went home.
Potential remonstrators are his neighbors who are all in violation of our policy as well.
Agreed.
well, actually,
But again,
if you look at when the zoning thing was written, our I think it's 1E is technically more appropriate for island numbers instead of R1B, but
Right,
That's
and
for
again,
another
like
day.
I've said 100 times,
Nothing to do
just
with it.
because it's a practice that's been accepted in the past does not mean that we want to continue it in the future. What kind of questions and comments of the board do we have?
I don't have a problem per se with the rear setback, but I mean, the front setback, I mean, it's there for everybody's safety. It's for, I mean, everybody that's on that property's safety to, you know, time to see people moving, especially in this case, across the road from that home, from the drive, from what's there. It's a safety. I mean, you're on the main road going into the island.
Right, but all my neighbors, my actual neighbor 2 doors down, she's 25 feet from the edge of the road right now. The driveway, or their garage is only 16 feet from the road. They can't even put a full car in there. We're well within the setbacks of all the neighbors.
Okay, and I just want to reiterate again, just because we've done it in the past does not mean it's something we want to continue.
Well, I understand that, but it's also in alignment with, if you look down, if you stand at one house and look down the row of houses, I'm gonna be in alignment with the houses. It's not like I'm asking to go beyond my neighbor's alignment at all.
I think what he's saying is, it will be no more dangerous than the existing neighbors.
And in fact, because we now have 13 feet on the side, there will be, our driveways are gonna be to the side, so we're very cognitive. I've been a police officer for 28 years and I actually did public safety.
This is not a front-load garage?
It's a front-load garage, but in terms of where we park, we now have the 13 on the side. So all our cars are gonna be off the side. If you've ever come by our house on a weekend, we don't park our cars generally up to the street when the kids are around. We put them off to the side or across the street where because I'm very, very cognitive of that.
Any further questions or comments from the board? And if not, I'd like to hear a motion, please.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the petition for the variance of developmental standards for the Raum Family Trust, Michael O'Hearn, for construction of a new home with setbacks of 16 feet in the front and 10 feet in the rear instead of the minimum 25. Property is located at 106 Island Drive, LaPorte, Indiana, Center Township, zoned R1B.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second. I understand the handcuff you're about with it. I've seen it.
If we could, I would love to, I'm sorry.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Aye. Your motion passes 3-2.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And if anybody would love to move that road somewhere else, all for it.
Let's return to petition number 3, which is a petition for special exception for Daniel Versaw to operate a sand mining business.
Motion to table to the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so petition number 3 is going to be tabled to the September meeting. Do we have any further business in front of the board this evening?
I do. I do have one other thing I would like to bring up.
Number 15.
I don't know how long ago it was, but we made a motion. I specifically made a motion that we allow the attorneys to go first. And I think at that time I said by alphabetical order, but because Ashley is so sharp, she decided some attorneys with the initial V would always go last, so now she takes them in on the first, whoever applies first. So if there's 4 attorneys, the attorneys will go in the order in which they applied. I think that makes more sense, so I'd like to make that official. And thank Ashley.
If you want my input?
He's beat.
Yeah, we gotta keep it that way. No, the courts, traditionally with the courts, the senior attorney goes first. That's how it's been for years and years. But whatever the board wants to do is fine.
Right, I think that would be difficult for Ashley to
Yeah,
determine.
Ashley would not know that, but she knows what date they apply.
Yeah.
So I would make that into a formal motion.
I'll second, Earl.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Ashley.
Any further business in front of the board, Anne Marie?
No.
I really am looking forward to hearing about the property on US 6, so I'm fascinated now how it got where it is.
Yeah, I
Yes.
do too.
Good point, Glenn.
So if you find anything, please let us know.
I will.
Right,
Well,
we don't have, our public comment is in the form of Vermont. So
It's after the fact.
is it in regards to a petition, Mr. Irwin?
No, it's, well, yeah, yes and no. Goes back to about a year ago, we had
Okay.
a thing down in Wanata.
Well, then, I think that's
I just want
probably,
this for your information.
well, first, you're not at the mic, and you didn't state your name and address for the record, and I would, let's make this snappy, because I'm breaking the rules.
Okay, James Irwin, 13951 South, 1050 West, Wanata, Indiana.
And you're concerned about the property where they had the storage containers?
Yeah, it's for sale. And they haven't done anything since we was here last, except the wind blew all the frames down and everything. And now I don't know what kind of activity is going there. I just want to know if according to your rules, 2 years, them containers had to be removed.
So I think that's a good point, thank you. Anne Marie, would you check into that, or have one of your inspectors check it?
Yeah, which one was that?
It's in South Wanata.
No, I don't remember the name, but it's where the old elevator used to be in South Wanata that burned down years ago.
Yeah, the old mercantile.
I know that we had tried contacting them about coming to get their building permit, because they did not. And we could never get a hold of them.
That guy has never done anything?
I think this is a discussion to be
That
held
needs-
off the record. I don't think it's
Right, I
necessarily
agree.
subject to a public meeting.
So I do have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Say aye. Those opposed? Meeting adjourned.